Good morning, everybody. It's just about 6 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, and we're going to do a very, very quick comparison between the Meze 99 Classic and the LCD-2 Closed. Why? Well, because I think that if you're looking for a comforting headphone, a headphone that is just made for you to sit and relax and listen to music and not hunt for detail, you're going to be faced with these two choices. Now, there are other headphones that probably will fall into the same category. The AudioQuest Nighthawk, for example, was a very good headphone, very competitively priced. But because we're on the LCD-2 closed review process, I'm going to do the Meze 99 Classics to the closed. What we're looking for is to determine if connected to a Dark Voice 336 tube amplifier, there is a noticeable difference in sound. Now, I'm not really concerned about detail. I'm not concerned about peaks because neither of these two headphones is really going to give you the detail. Although the two closed is going to give you more detail than the 99 Classic because they're different types of headphones made for different purposes. But the real critical issue here is whether there is a sound difference and if I personally think that there's a good or bad sound difference. So let's just get to it. I have everything connected to an A/B switch. I have the 99 Classic on my, not 99 Classic, sorry, the LCD-2 closed on my head, connected to the Dark Voice. So we're going to start with Flight from the City. Now, when I say I'm looking for a comforting pair of headphones, what I'm talking about is a pair of headphones that doesn't really emphasize the bass, doesn't allow the peaky frequencies in the higher registers, suppresses that, rolls it off sooner than later, so to speak. It has a very smooth tonality throughout the entire frequency range. I think those types of headphones are smooth sounding, are relaxing, are comforting headphones because the way that they reproduce the sound is, yes, a little bit manipulated from the way that the artist originally recorded it, but it allows you to just sit back and relax and just let your mind wander. If that happens with a pair of headphones, then I would say, arguably, that is a relaxing, comforting pair of headphones. And now, as I have been talking to you, I've noticed something about the LCD-2 closed on this song. It's just so smooth and careful and melodic and sweet. I mean, these are all, first, audiophile terms and two very vague terms. More concretely put, with the LCD-2 closed on the Dark Voice, everything is just smooth. It's relaxing. I can concentrate talking and recording, thinking about my next statement, what it's going to be, and not get distracted by the music, not get distracted by any particular frequency or any particular detail. And once again, I'm not doing this to detail hunt because that's not going to be a very fair comparison between these two headphones. The question is, which pair of headphones really does provide a better, relaxing experience? And about 2 minutes in, I can say that the LCD-2 closed on the Dark Voice at about medium volume, just so smooth and pleasant and relaxing. So let's stop. And let's switch to the Meze 99 Classics. Now, the thing about the 99 Classics is that they don't isolate sound at all compared to the LCD-2 closed. Let's see if that makes any difference. So let's start again. There's a clear difference in sound. Whereas the two closed had a more resolving sound, more depth, more sound stage, it was wider, as if you're in a wide room. The 99 Classics is much more narrow. It sounds like you are inside a small room listening to this. A small room listening to a piano. The piano might still sound good, but it sounds as if you're in a small room. And that's exactly the experience I'm getting. There's still detail in this song. I would say that there's about the same type of detail as in the two closed, just not as open and airy and elegant, I would say. And what do I mean by elegant? Well, I mean, with the two closed, there was so much air and width in the song that it felt like I was sitting in a comfortably sized room. But listening on the 99 Classic, it's more of a claustrophobic experience, as if I'm sitting in my bedroom and there's a pianist in my bedroom playing a piano. The four walls are going to resonate the sound waves differently than the four walls in a larger room, say in a theater. And using that comparison, the two closed gives me that theatrical sound, the theater-like sound, if I'm sitting in that big room, versus the 99 Classic, where I'm sitting in my bedroom. But does that make the 99 Classics less enjoyable? About 2 minutes in, now that I've acclimated to the headphone, I could tell you that it's an incredibly pleasant listening experience. It's as if the song is made for you, that nobody else is around and it's just you. Now, it has nothing to do with the sound isolation because there is basically none. But even though these are close back, but the way that the sound is coming at you, that's another example. With the 99 Classics, I feel the piano is facing you and you're just being forced that music into your ears. Whereas with the two closed, it was more as if the sound is coming from somewhere and it's not directly in front, it's to the side, it's from the back. The 99 Classics, it's more directed at your ears. Okay. And with this A and B, excuse me while I take a drink of coffee. With this A and B, which one do I prefer more? Well, see, that's the thing. There's a big difference between the two, which is a good thing. It's an excellent thing. The two closed give me a much wider sense of soundstage, a much wider sense of the room. And that may be a little confusing for people. What do you mean by that? Well, when you put on a pair of headphones, they're tuned in a particular way to either provide soundstage and width or not provide soundstage and width. Soundstage is what I mean by you're looking at, let's say you're sitting at a play. You're looking at the stage. That's the stage, right? You have stage right, you have stage left, you have the front of the stage, you have the back of the stage, you have the middle of the stage. That's what I call sound stage. Where the voices, where the music, where the instruments come from is, in fact, on that sound stage. It could be you have a vocalist dead center right up front. That means that the vocalist is the one key element in the song that is much more forward than the other elements. That's what I would call the vocalist is near the top of the soundstage, near the front of the soundstage. If there's a drum, but the drum is muted and it's in the back somewhere, and I know it's there, but it's not particularly interacting with anything, it's just doing its own thing, that's what I would call a drum in the back of the soundstage. Okay. Now, what do I mean by width? Width, I mean the size of what it makes me feel like. Is the room big or is the room small with my headphone on? Does the sound like? Does it appear to me that this music that's coming through the headphones, is it directed at me from a small sitting room or a large theater? And everybody will be able to tell the difference. We've all been in small rooms where there's a lot of echo, where there's poor acoustics, and we've all been in very big theaters. Whether you go to a play, you go to a symphony, you go watch a movie at a theater, you know what that sounds like or what it should sound like. And your brain will be able to tell you the difference between the two. Okay, so that's what I mean by soundstage and width. The LCD-2 closed have more soundstage and more width, but I think the reason is because it just has more width. There's more of that soundstage presence. When there's more width, you have more soundstage to play with. Does that make sense? If you have a narrow stage, then it just seems like everything is kind of grouped together. All the elements, all the actors are in a very narrow spot. Okay, they all have different places they could stand, but that stage is smaller than a larger stage, obviously, and so there's less room for that smaller stage to interact for the actors to interact with each other. The larger the stage, the bigger the sound stage, the bigger the width, meaning there's more volume, there's more position, there's more airiness in the song. That's the best way that I can describe it. So there's the two differences between these headphones. Now, what's good and what's bad? Neither. Neither's good nor bad. It all depends on your particular preference. There are songs out there that sound phenomenal on a closed stage headphone, and there are songs that sound not really good on a closed stage headphone. So Flight from the City, for example, it sounds amazing on a headphone that reproduces wide soundstage. How did I like it on the 99 Classic? Well, it was good. It just wasn't as good as an experience when compared to the two closed, because I didn't have all of that soundstage. I didn't get all of the position in the instruments. I was still getting good, smooth sound, but wasn't really enjoying it when compared to the two closed. Let's try something else. Let's try Want You Back by Haim, and I have the 99 Classics on. So when her voice starts, because the soundstage is narrow, or narrower compared to the two close, it's as if she's singing to me. Her tone is smooth, it's pleasant, it's just comforting. Her voice can get a little crackly, a little sharp when you're listening to this song on more critical headphones. Say the HD700s, HD800s, the LCD-XC. Those are headphones made for monitoring and mastering. But the 99 Classic is smooth and amazing, warm and comforting. When she's singing and her backup dancers are singing, it's as if I'm getting a private audition and I'm in a small room and I'm just listening and enjoying her voice. There is soundstage here, left or right, not so much front and back. There's depth, but not as much depth as I have heard in other headphones. There's very good bass reproduction. There's good slam, but not overemphasized. It doesn't mute the other frequencies. It doesn't drown out the other frequencies. Okay, so let's switch to the LCD-2 closed. Much more airy, less intimate. Yeah, this is weird. So coming directly from the 99 Classics to the two closed, I feel that it's not a very personal song anymore. I just happen to be one of the many people sitting and listening in a big room. It's still a great song. It still sounds fantastic, but it's not as personal. It's not directed at me specifically. It's just directed towards me. There's a big difference between the two. At you means you're the only person there and they're performing to convince you. Towards you is you just happen to be one of the many audience members that is experiencing this. The 99 Classic has reproduced this song in a much more comforting, more close, more narrow way, so that I felt as if the song was directed towards me. right? Directed at me, like I am the one person. The too close, because of that wider sound stage, kind of makes the song sound a little bit less intense, less personal, less directed towards me specifically. Does that kind of make sense? Her voice is smooth. It's, there's plenty of detail. It sounds great, blah, blah, blah. We've done this song on these headphones before on the sound test. So that's not the issue. The issue is, which one do I prefer now on this song? Well, I would say I prefer the 99 Classics to this, between the two. Why? Because the vocal is just so sweetly and smoothly rendered in both headphones, but it's so smoothly rendered. Now the question is, well, do I like the narrow stage or do I like the wide stage? Because the sound is great on both. They have their own distinctive personalities to the sound, right? Audeze is not the same as Meze. Their tuning is very different, very, very different drivers. But tonally, it's smooth on both. So if I have that checked off, how do I make my decision? Well, then the decision comes to, do I like wide soundstage or narrow soundstage on this song? And I would say I like the narrow on this song because it's directed towards me, because I feel as if I am sitting there and listening to this beautiful voice, to these singers, and experiencing the song firsthand, up front. Whereas with the too close, it's more as if I'm just sitting in the background somewhere. And even though I'm there and I'm personally experiencing it, it's not an experience specifically for me. Does that kind of make sense? So, on these two songs, I could keep going down the line, and I'll just do one more. How about one more? Though I'm running late. How about one more? Let's do drum solo. Let's do drum solo. I have the two closed on. And what are we looking for on the drum solo? First of all, bass impact. Remember, this song, to properly reproduce it with all the detail, you got to get that sharp whack when the drumstick first hits the drum head. There's that kind of sonic boom sort of effect where you get that whack, and it's a sharp, very, very sharp sound. The too close don't reproduce that. They mute that out. It rolls off well before that sound comes into play. So it's a much smoother experience. So therefore, there's not a whole lot of detail. What we're looking for in this comparison is to find out the bass impact, which has more bass impact, which sounds more pleasurable, more comforting. So plenty of air. It's not particularly detailed because I'm missing that sharp drum hit, but it's smooth. Plenty of soundstage. Okay. So now let's go to the 99 Classics. Start again. Here we go. Oh yeah, it's like I'm sitting right up to the edge of the stage. The slam on the drums is more detailed on the 99 Classic than it is on the too close, because that sharpness from the drumstick hitting the drum head, there's a little bit more of it than on the too close. And when I say a little bit, I would say noticeably more. Narrow soundstage yet again. But if I wanted to sit and just listen to the drum, this is the headphone I would use. Because it's so closed off. It's like my head is close to the stage and the drum is just directed at me. And there's nothing else around. No other instruments are playing. Nothing else matters. So there you go. That's the difference. The biggest difference between these two headphones, other than the driver and all that stuff, but the biggest difference is the width. Which has more width? The Too Close has substantially more width. Which has more airiness? The Too Closed. Which has smoother tonality? That's debatable. I think they're both pretty smooth, and it comes down to preference and taste. Which one do I prefer for easy listening? Both. Right? I prefer both. They're good in what they do for each particular type of song. So, Flight from the City, which is piano heavy, sounds substantially better on the Too Close because you need that airiness for the piano to resonate. But vocals sound better, at least on Haim, sound better on the 99 Classic because it feels like I'm the person that they're auditioning for. I'm sitting there and listening to the song and having a very intimate experience because it's so narrow soundstage. With drum solo, it's very similar. Now, which one sounds better? That's really a toss-up. Because if you want to get the experience like you're in this big room, that you're watching the drummer work on the drums, then the Too Close is the better one of the two to experience. But if you want to feel as if you're sitting there and the drummer is in this small room with you and you don't care about the fact that it's a little muffled, you don't care that it's not open sounding, it's not particularly reference class because it's not, then the 99 Classic. If you want to feel as if all you want to hear is the drum hit, 99 Classic. Now, it's a 99 Classic, a drum bass king. No. Don't take that away from what I say. I am not saying that the 99 Classic is a bass king. It is not. It just reproduces the bass in a more intimate way. It reproduces the midtones in a more intimate way because of that closed-off nature, even though it's not particularly sound isolating. And that's the wonderful thing about these headphones. That's the wonderful thing about companies that really put in effort into their products. They design it purposefully. They think about it and then they implement it. I love Audeze headphones. I like Meze. They do things differently. They tune differently. They have different characteristics. They have different styles, even though they're both particularly smooth in the way that they reproduce the sound. However, how they present the sound, once they've tuned it, how they present the sound is so different from one headphone to the other that you can listen to the same song over and over and over again and switch back and forth between these two headphones and you would get a different listening experience. You could possibly go to a different amplifier, a solid state amplifier, and get a slightly different experience from that. And then you could go to a hybrid tube amplifier and get a slightly different experience from that. You could start EQing, and then you could start using DSP, and then filters, and then all sorts of wonderful things. And you could multiply the way that you experience these headphones. That's the wonderful thing about companies that really put in the effort. And I feel as if the 99 Classics and the LCD-2 Close are fantastic headphones for what they do. Which should you pick over, one over the other for comfort listening? I can't tell you that. I don't know. It all depends on your particular listening style, on what you want to hear. If you like soundstage and width and you want that airiness as if you're sitting in a big room, the Too Close is going to give you that. If you want a much more intimate experience, and that's all you want to feel as if it's intimate and it's for you, then the 99 Classic is the one to go with. I hope this has been of some help. This is a review I've wanted to do, a comparison really. I've wanted to do for a couple of weeks. I'm glad I got to it. There's a lot more I could say about these two headphones because, but the problem is that you're comparing apples and oranges. It's not a real fair comparison. And so I have to find a way I have to find an excuse to use the Classic in a comparison because they're not reference class headphones. The price difference is so big. The drivers and the tuning is just, it's just not a fair comparison. But if you're talking about how a song makes me feel on either headphone, then that's a fair comparison because that's a fair question, right? which one sounds better to me personally, that I can answer. And for me, like I said, Haim sounds better on the 99 class because it's more intimate. Flight from the City sounds better on the Too Close because of that airiness. And for drum solo, depends on your preference. And for me personally, on the drum solo, I don't know, because the experience is so different on based upon which headphone I use. Hopefully this has been of some help. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we will continue the review process of the LCD-2 closed. They're still phenomenal headphones.